Hello and welcome. I did it. I've moved house, or should I say we, because there's obviously me, Emily, and the cat Ziggy. And as you can probably tell, I'm not quite organised yet. I don't have my little Bronte corner set up, and I don't really have anywhere sensible to film. And although the boxes are gradually disappearing, there's still rather a lot of them just out of sight. At the moment, I've got a couple of chairs, a camera, obviously, and a room full of things that need to find a new home. So I thought, rather than wait until everything looked perfect, why not let you see it exactly as it is? One of the nicest jobs I've had over the last few days has been unpacking my Bronte books. Well, I say unpacking. What actually happened was I'd open a box, I'd find a book I've not seen for a few months, I'd sit down on the floor to just, have a quick flick through it, and then suddenly realise 20 minutes later I'm reading instead of unpacking. And I don't think I got a great deal done, but never mind. It did make me realise though just how many wonderful books I've collected over the years. Some I use almost every week when I'm researching videos. Some I've almost forgotten I've owned and was really, really pleased to find them again. And then there's a couple that have been patiently waiting for me to finally give them the time they deserve. So I thought today I'll do something a little bit different. Rather than taking you out and about or onto the moors or diving into another piece of Bronte history, why don't you join me on the floor while I rummage through my Bronte book collection. Ooh. I do mean part of the collection, by the way, because behind you are quite a few boxes with books that haven't yet been unpacked. Oops. So for once, this really is a grab a brew kind of video, because that's exactly what I'm hoping to do throughout this video. I'm going to go make myself a pot of tea. And let's rummage through a good few boxes of Bronte books, and let's try and stay focused this time. Although I can't promise anything. I think I better start with the book that I love the most. Right. This is The Brontes by Juliet Barker, otherwise known as the famous Bronte brick. Now, if you've never come across this book before, it's a biography of the whole Bronte family. It's not just Charlotte, Emily and Anne, but we've got Patrick, we've got Maria, we've got Branwell, we've got Aunt Branwell, and a lot of other people as well. It's incredibly detailed and it's based on years and years of research. If I ever need to check a date or remind myself where a quotation came from, or just make sure I've remembered something correctly before I film, this is nearly always the first book I reach for. I honestly think it is my Bronte Bible. It's never far away from my desk, and if you look through it you will find there are bookmarks, we have a pencil, we've got pieces of tissue marking places, we've got bits of paper, and really sorry, some bits have even been underlined, but before you call me a monster and shout at the screen, I have underlined things in pencil, so I'm not quite as terrible as it sounds. This copy has its own little story as well, because I found it in one of those wonderful second-hand shops that seems to sell absolutely everything. You know, the sort of place, you've got furniture stacked up over in one corner, you've got clothes in another, and then you've got ornaments higgledy-piggledy and bric-a-brac, and then in one small corner is a pile of books, and sitting amongst them was this rather tired-looking copy. And when I opened it up, I discovered it'd been signed by Juliet Barker herself. But not once, twice. So the first one says, for Cynthia Longsdale, with best wishes, and then a signature. And then further down, it says here, 18th of September 1995, and her signature. And I've absolutely no idea how that's happened, but I rather like the mystery of it, because it makes me wonder where this book has been before it ended up on my bookshelf. That's one of the reasons I love secondhand books so much. I know some people like new books, they're pristine and everything, but I'm completely the opposite because I like the yellowing pages, I like the slightly faded cover and the corners that have been clearly knocked about a bit because they tell you that the book has already lived at least one life. And sometimes I find myself wondering, who's owned this before me? Did they read it cover to cover? Did they keep coming back to it like I do? And why did they decide to part with it? I mean, I almost wish books could talk because I think they would have some absolutely fascinating stories to tell. As for the book itself, I've read it so many times over the years, although probably not in the normal way because I don't often sit down and read it from beginning to end. What actually happens is I'm researching a video and I think, oh, I wonder what Juliet Barker would say. So I open it up, I check out the little things that I went there for, but then find about half an hour later, I'm still there because I'm ended up reading 3 completely different sections about something completely different. It's one of those books that's very difficult to dip into without getting distracted. And if I had one tiny criticism, and it really is tiny, I'd love the index to be even more detailed because I'm probably asking far too much and I'm really, really sorry because it's already enormous, but it would make my life so much easier when I'm researching. Other than that, I can't recommend it enough. It is so interesting. And if you're interested in the Brontes and you want one really solid reference book, this is one I would highly recommend. Right, the next book, let's have a look. Oh, it's at the back. Here it is. Now, the next one couldn't be more different. This is The Bronte Myth by Lucasta Miller. And again, this is another one of those lovely charity shop finds. In fact, when I opened it up, I discovered it once belonged to somebody called Ruth Sherwins. And I wonder if she's watching this video. Hello, Ruth, this is your book. I don't know why, but I always stop and wonder about things like that. You know, who are you, Ruth? Was she a Bronte enthusiast? Did she enjoy the book? Or did somebody clear out a bookshelf years later without realising what a good book it actually was? We'll never know. But I rather like thinking that these books, like I said, have had a whole life before they found their way to me. I have to admit though, I've never really warmed to the cover. It's got a very late 90s, early 2000s feel to it. And for me, it doesn't really fit the Brontes somehow. Thankfully, you don't read the cover. But what this book does, and what I found so interesting, is that it isn't really a straightforward biography. Instead, Lucasta Miller looks at how the Brontes have been portrayed over the years and asks where some of these famous stories actually came from. Were they based on evidence? Were they somebody's opinion? Had a small assumption gradually turned into accepted fact because people kept repeating it? That's exactly the sort of thing I really enjoy reading, because if you've watched my channel for any length of time, you'll know I'm forever asking, but how do we know that? I mean, I don't mind theories at all, as long as obviously they're presented as theories. What I like is evidence. And I thought Lucasta Miller did a really good job of asking awkward questions that make you stop and think. I did enjoy some chapters more than others, which is probably true for most books, but overall I found it really fascinating. It's one of those books that makes you question things you've perhaps just taken for granted. And I always think that's a sign of a really good book. I think I would genuinely love to meet Lucasta Miller one day, because I think she is a really fascinating person to chat to, although knowing me, I'd probably spend the whole time asking her a ton of questions. I like doing that. Right, next book. It's here somewhere. Oh, there it is. So, this next book is a bit of an exception because it's fiction. And if you know me, then you know that I really do normally just read factual books, especially when it comes to the Brontes. But this is A Taste of Sorrow by Jude Morgan. And I bought it from the Bronte Parsonage, so you can see the stamp. And I have to confess, I bought it because I like the cover. And I know we're always told don't judge a book by its cover. But there's just something about three sisters walking through the grass together that made me just want to pick it up. It's not another famous portrait painting, so there's a relief. It somehow felt, I don't know, a little more personal. Normally, I fill my shelf with biographies and collections of letters and, I don't know, reference books, because I like getting as close as I can to the real people. But every now and again, though, I have tried to venture into fiction because, oh yes, I have read, obviously, Bella Ellis's Bronte mysteries, which I really enjoyed. But this one caught my eye. If you've not come across it before, The Taste of Sorrow is a fictional retelling of the Bronte sisters' lives. It imagines the conversations, the relationships, and the emotion behind the events we know actually happened. And while staying surprisingly faithful to the historic record, you can tell that Jude Morgan had done an enormous amount of research before writing it, and I think that's probably why I enjoyed it so much. It's actually been quite a few years since I last read this, so I can't tell you every twist and turn of the story now, but I do remember finishing it thinking how pleased I was that I'd picked it up. I don't know why there's a bookmark in it still. It reminds me that every now and then it's all right to put down a biography and simply enjoy a well-told story. And looking at these first few books now, I realise they all represent different stages of my own Bronte journey. One became my trusted reference book, another taught me to question where stories came from, and this one reminded me that history and imagination can actually sit alongside each other rather beautifully. I hadn't really thought about it like that until I started unpacking them, which I suppose is exactly why moving out turned out to be the perfect excuse for making this video. I feel like I've got magic hands. So, the next one I pulled out the box was this one. And seeing it again brought back a lot of memories because this is one of the very first Bronte biographies I've ever read properly. It's Emily Bronte by Winifred Guerin. Is that how you pronounce it? Again, this was another charity shop bargain. In fact, there is still an Age UK sticker on the back that says I paid £1.99 for it, which I think was money well spent. I love finding books like this because they've often editions that have been out of print for a few years. And this particular copy dates from about the 1970s. And although the biography itself was published a little earlier, and despite its age, it's still regarded as one of the classic biographies of Emily. I can still remember the first time I read it because I actually started reading it twice. I picked it up one afternoon, I read a few chapters, and then I realised I wasn't really giving it my full attention. So I put it down, waited until I had some quiet time, and I started it all over again from the beginning. Sorry, that was me slapping my own leg then. I think that's a sign of a really good book if you're prepared to go back to page 1 because you feel it deserves your full concentration. It's probably going to be doing something right, isn't it? What I really liked about Winifred Guerin's writing was that she seemed to treat Emily as a real person rather than trying to turn her into some mysterious legend. She explores her life, her poetry, her writing, the people around her, and perhaps most importantly, what we actually know about her. There are places where she offers interpretation, of course, but I never came away feeling that she was forcing me to believe one particular version of Emily. I felt she was trying to sort of present the evidence as honestly as she could and then letting us, the reader, make our own minds up. I mean, I like that. You probably have noticed there's a bit of a theme developing here. I seem to be drawn towards books that are based on careful research rather than sweeping statements. I mean, I don't mind someone saying, oh, this is what I think, but I also want to know why they think it. Show me the evidence, point me towards the letters, tell me where this idea came from, and then let me decide what I think. That's probably just the researcher in me, but yeah, that's always in my mind when I'm reading. And one part of this book that I particularly remember enjoying was the section about Gondal. Now, I have to be honest and say that the Brontes' imaginary worlds have never been the area that fascinates me the most. sorry. Give me a novel, Jane Eyre, Wuthering Heights, Agnes Grey, rather that any day. But I've always felt I ought to understand Gondal better because it plays such an important part in Emily and Anne's creative writing. Winifred explains it in a way that finally made a little more sense to me, and I remember coming away feeling I understood Emily that little bit better. There are illustrations and images throughout the book which I think are lovely, and not hundreds of them, but there's just enough dotted through the book to break things up and remind you of the places, the people and the sketches and things. I always enjoy a book that does that because sometimes seeing a familiar sketch or location suddenly brings the whole chapter to life. Right, let's get comfy. Now, staying with somebody you have already heard me mention maybe once or twice. Yes, it's back to Juliet Barker with her book, The Brontes, The Brontes, A Life in Letters. I don't know why I can't say that. And it's not an exaggeration to say this is one of the books I use more than any other, apart from the brick. This was actually a Christmas present from my daughter Emily. She knew I was borrowing somebody else's copy before, and I'd mentioned several times how useful I thought it was. And she kindly got me my own. Oh, I was so thrilled because I really did want my own copy, so now I have it. And just like the famous Bronte brick, one has become absolutely covered in tabs, as you can see. Yeah, I think looking through it, nearly every chapter has a tab on it. The reason I find this so useful is that it brings together the Bronte letters, their diary pages, their journal entries, all of that, but in chronological order. And that might not seem particularly interesting to you or exciting, but when you're researching, it becomes incredibly useful because you can follow their lives almost like day by day. I love seeing that, Charlotte writes to Ellen Nussey, and then a little later, she then maybe writes to a publisher, and then perhaps Mary Taylor. But then we get Patrick, he's writing a letter, followed by Branwell popping up, and maybe Anne writes something. And it almost feels like you're watching the whole family's conversation unfolding in real time. And instead of just isolated letters here and there, they become part of one long story. And I think that's really fascinating. I also find it helps me when I'm trying to sort of understand what else is happening in the family and their lives at that particular moment. Because sometimes a single letter can make much more sense when you read the sort of 3 or 4 that came before it. And this book really makes that easy to do. I'll tell you something that annoys me a little bit. A few months ago, I discovered that Julia Barker had actually been at the very same event I was at. And I had no idea. And honestly, if I'd known she was there, if I'd known she was there, I would have gone straight over to introduce myself and thank her for everything she's written and contributed to Bronte research. I probably wouldn't have kissed her boots, but I would have shaken her very firmly by the hand. It's one of those moments where you think, oh, if only I'd known. Anyway, perhaps one day our paths will cross. And Juliet, if you're watching this, thank you very much. I really, really like your work. Oh, goodness me. Oh, why do I sit so far away from the camera? Now then, every book lover has one. A TBR pile, or also known as a to be read pile. Or, if you're anything like me, several piles. Mine seems to have a habit of growing much faster than it's shrinking at the moment. And every time I convince myself I'm going to stop buying books until I've actually caught up, I walk into a charity shop and, well, we all know how that ends. So the book currently sitting right at the top of my to be read pile is this, The Invention of Charlotte Bronte by Graham Watson. This is one of the few books you'll see today that I've actually bought brand new, and it smells lovely. And I bought it from Wave of Nostalgia in Haworth because if I'm buying a book new, I do like to support independent bookshops where I can, and I'll put a link to the Wave of Nostalgia in the comments. Graham very kindly signed my copy as well, which makes it feel even more special. So I've spoken to Graham a few times over Instagram. So I've been aware of this book ever since it came out, and I've heard so many wonderful things about it. In fact, I've almost had to avoid reading too many reviews because I don't want other people's opinion in my head before I've had the chance to read it for myself. I want to make up my own mind first, if that makes sense. People often ask me why I haven't read it, and the honest answer is life. The last few months have been such a whirlwind, and I don't feel I've been able to give it what it deserves because everything has been happening. We've obviously got the move, we're trying to keep my channel going, and just life in general. And I know if I start it now, I wouldn't be able to give it my full attention. And that might sound a little strange, but I think some books, they deserve that. Especially a book you've been looking forward to for such a long time. I don't want to rush through it. I just want to savour it. And while I'm thinking about unpacking boxes or wondering where I've put the kettle, but it's okay, I found it. I want to make a pot of tea one day, find a quiet corner one afternoon, switch off everything else and lose myself in it. Now the books are finally starting to come out of their boxes, I feel it's almost calling me, this one anyway. Its time has come. So if you've already read this one, please don't spoil it for me, but do let me know if you thought it was good. And yeah, let's compare notes, but don't spoil it, obviously. Does that make sense? So, the other book that's patiently waiting for me to read is this one. Oh, sorry. Charlotte Bronte by Winifred Guerin. I know we've mentioned her before, but after enjoying her biography of Emily, it seemed only right that I should eventually read the one that she'd written about Charlotte as well. This is another second-hand find. I think I bought it in Edinburgh, although I can't swear to that right now. Once again, it's one of those lovely older editions that has that bookshop smell. It's slightly yellow pages, and I think I'm drawn to them now. I know a lot of people love a pristine book, but no, give me a second-hand book any day of the week. I was trying to work out exactly how old this copy is because it gets slightly confusing. The biography was first published in 1967, but this Oxford edition followed in 1969. But I don't think this particular copy is quite that old because the price on the back is £9.99, which would have been rather expensive in the 1960s. So somewhere along the line, it's obviously been reprinted, but it's still got that old lovely feel of an older book about it. And just like Graham's book, I've been saving this one. I don't want to sort of dip in for 10 minutes before I go to bed and then forget everything I've read. I want to sit down properly, give it my full attention and just enjoy it. I have a feeling this is going to be one of those, I don't know, rainy autumn afternoons or winter evenings when you curl up with a blanket and a mug of tea. And that sounds rather nice, actually. Mind you, know me, I'm probably going to pop into another charity shop and then maybe come home with 3 more books that just jump the TBR queue. Who knows? I honestly don't think there is such thing as having too many books. Well, actually there is when you're carrying them all in boxes into a house on a hot day. But yeah, like childbirth, you soon forget that. And then you see them all and you're like, okay, that's fine, I'm happy. I do have a mug of tea. I have brought with me my comedy mugs, as I've called them, because for some reason they have very strange images on them, but they're very big mugs. So yeah, I love them for their size, not so much their imagery. This one has, I don't know if you can see it, a pig with what looks like a tea towel on its back or something like that. Very bizarre, but it holds a very good cup of tea. So, and as I haven't unpacked everything yet, it really doesn't bother me. I have 15 bruises on my legs. I've counted them because I have so many. It seems I'm very clumsy when it comes to moving boxes and furniture. And so far it's been the hottest week of the year. and I've been moving furniture, lifting boxes, and I have worked out a very good system moving extremely heavy things upstairs on your own. Yay, us strong, independent women, eh? Yes, and this is staying with somebody we've already heard about, but we're going to mention her again. Yes, it's Juliet Barker, and this time it's the Brontes, a letter. Oh, stay up there. Stay. Emily made me that. I'll show you. Look, look. It's a card she made me. I don't know if you can see that. It's cute, isn't it? That's our cat. And now obviously there are my books. Ooh, throwing it around. She's a good girl. Right, let's try again. So looking around at all these shelves, or some of the shelves, I realised something while I was unpacking. Every single one of these books marks a different part of my own Bronte journey. Some have taught me facts that obviously I still use today. Some have encouraged me to question the stories that I'd always accepted as true. And some simply remind me why I fell in love with the Brontes in the first place. Perhaps that's why unpacking this particular box took me so long. It wasn't really unpacking, it was remembering. And I'm sure there are plenty more books tucked away in other boxes that once I found them, I think, oh yeah, I've forgotten about you. So if you've enjoyed today's video, perhaps, this could be something I do a little series of, because yeah, I've got plenty more books to show you, and I'm happy to sit on the floor with another box. There's certainly enough of them. Before I disappear also, and carry on with my good work, I have my 3 famous questions for you, because I do love to hear what you all think. So, question number 1. Is there a book that stayed with you long after you finished reading it? It doesn't have to be Bronte related, just one that never felt like it's really left you. Number 2. What currently is sitting at the top of your to be read pile? It can be Bronte or something completely different. I'm always interested to hear about books that people are enjoying. But thinking about it, I probably don't need any more books to my own shelves, so don't influence me. And finally, question number 3. Have you ever read a book that drove you so completely potty you seriously considered throwing it across the room? I'd love to know what that was. Right, I better stop talking about books and actually get on with putting them on the shelves. It's just so nice to just sit still, isn't it, and just have a little look through them. If you like this video, please do that whole likey, subscribey, hypey thingy, because it really does help me out and it lets YouTube know that we want to watch more Bronte content. Have a great weekend. Take care of yourselves. Enjoy this weather, and I will see you all next Friday. No, I will see you the Friday after next for more Bronte adventures. See you then.